We're moving on to the final talk of today. Andreas Grün will be presenting translating the Public Service Media Remit into metrics and algorithms.
So, hi everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I can hope you can see my screen. This is Andreas, from ZDF in Germany. I'm presenting our work on translating the Public Service Media Remit into metrics and algorithms. This is a joint work of the personalization and automation team at ZDF. We are a team of editors, data scientists, data engineers, project managers with such diverse backgrounds as nuclear physics, art, and computer games, just to name a few. So ZDF is a public broadcaster in Germany and offers a wide variety of content on a streaming service called ZDFmediathek, with live and on-demand videos, and a full program with news, fiction, documentary, sports, and content for kids. Automated recommendations are quite successful. They generate a large part of the overall viewing volume. For example, on smart TVs up to 50%. And by using a A/B test on the start page, we could also see that adding just this specific recommendation cluster you can see here resulted in a 10% increase of the viewing volume alone. And we have a lot of different content recommended. So 20% of the content catalog is recommended each day. That means we have a high aggregate diversity. Of course, we are working hard to bring these numbers up, but there's a really interesting question we have to ask ourselves as public service media. So is that good enough for a public service broadcaster? And do we comply to our public media service remit? And are we optimizing those algorithms in the right direction? There's no easy answer to this, but I'd like to lay out in this talk a bit how we're approaching this. So first look at the PSMR. So the Public Service Media Remit is laid down in several laws. These paragraphs describe at a very high level of abstraction what public broadcasters in Germany are supposed to do. For example, we have to provide education, information, advice, entertainment, and in particular also cultural content. And we have to follow some principles like objectivity, impartiality of reporting, diversity of opinion, and the balance of offers. So at least two things are quite obvious here. First, that's not what, for example, TikTok or YouTube are aiming for. And second, there's also no single simple translation from the PSMR to one or specific type of algorithms. But at the same time, as algorithms become more and more important, you remember the 50%, we must find a way to answer the question. So looking down the vertical from the PSMR to the product, to the recommendation within, and finally the code and data, that does not really help, and it's not so easy to do with all the stakeholders involved. You may find some hints, like for example, the post-processing, where to filter out some same content, but it's no easy answer there to find here. But at the same time, we have some relevant stakeholders, for example, the boards and regulators, also the editors, looking at these PSMN values and looking at the product and asking themselves, how does it work together? And on the other side, we have some ML people who are working on model training and more like looking on these more like traditional accuracy-based information retrieval metrics here in the dashboard. So we think that there's something missing in here. We have to focus more on the audience, and also we have to bring in some PSM metrics that we can measure at the product level, live in production. And these four are quite common, well known to the recommender system as community, like coverage, that people already have paid for this content, like we are public service. So every content must have some exposure within the product. We think novelty is also really PSM-like. Like we have to avoid that only new public content appears, while at the same time we have to support the interests of minority groups, for example. Diversity is simply PSM value. And we also have to support serendipity, like this, have users to find new areas of interest. And with these metrics, we also have to build the links up to the PSM values, and of course also to the information retrieval metrics. And additionally, we have to do three more things with them. First, we have to make them transparent and understandable to all these stakeholders involved. I mean, all really hard to do. We have to adapt them to our use cases where we have different contexts and different goals. So it's more like a family of metrics or core metrics. And of course, we will have to refine them, and also with all these stakeholders involved. And before we look at some use cases we have here at ZDFmediathek, just a quick note on the content, because it's obvious that there's no diversity possible or serendipity when you have in your recommendations, when you have no diverse content. So when you have just a can of beans, it's not possible to bring in something different or diverse or serendipitous. ZDF does have a lot of content, of course, maybe not in every area like we wish to have, but also what we sometimes don't have, and that's really a challenge for us, is that we always not have this metadata needed to create diverse recommendations on a semantic level and even to measure it. So that's really a problem and an ongoing challenge, even as we become more and more a streaming platform and not just sending out our own content alone. But now let us look at some use cases to get a more practical idea of these metrics. Our first use case is the automated personalized recommendations. On the left, you can see them on the start page, like on the first slide, and the right on the documentary index page. The primary context here is the user and the page the user is on currently. And the PSM metrics in focus here are serendipity and diversity. There's some slight difference here. So it's the similarity metric on the start page where you can reach to every type of content. We are on the category level, and on the right side, we are on topic level, like there are different topics and documentaries, obviously. So within our current implementation, there's much room for improvements when it comes to these metrics. For example, by using a broader context or establishing a more fine-grained similarity measure that we think that could help improve the PSM metrics in this case. On the algorithmic side, we are moving currently from RNN-based algorithms to transformer-based, and also we are testing different loss functions, also different sampling strategies, and also augmentation strategies. And we're doing this with continuous A/B testing. You can see here, and we look at these different PSM metrics within this A/B test. But we think we should also bring this to a broader public, like core value of PSM is trust, and we have to build trust with our stakeholders. We think we have to be very transparent about that, and that's the basic idea behind this public value dashboard you can see here. So first we go on these basic metrics, and then we can measure baselines. And we built that not only for the expert like you in this field, but we also want to connect to a broader public with it, and want to make changes to the algorithms and also to the metrics in the public and communicate it transparently. So this use internally, but it's currently under development, but will be released soon to the public. Another tool to support transparency and an informed discussion are model cards. They provide all relevant information about the intended use of the model, down to the details about algorithms and data, biases we are aware of, also towards stakeholders. And there are also links included to different dashboards and additional hints for the editors, for example. And you can see the model card for this personalized recommendations, where some specific details about what content is presented, what content is not presented, what KPIs we are aiming for. So a lot of detail here. Another use case is this newly available on ZDFinfo documentary index page. Our idea here was to fully automate the content cluster. That is the last one on the documentary page that is curated manually by the editors. And by using bandits, we aim to optimize these PSM metrics through these built-in exploration capabilities. And this is here how it looked like. First, we put the most recent items and also one promotion item first. And this promotion item is automatically fetched from another system. And all the other items in this cluster are generated by this CMAP. And here may I ask, why did you not use the CMAP alone? So the promise to the users are here is you can find new content. So there has to be new content, especially on the first positions. And we try to achieve that through only using recency as a context to CMAP, but that didn't work out. Like users also favored a lot of long-tailed content here. So we are tuning and doing a lot of A/B testing, and we're facing some practical challenges like timings, for example. All the recommendations have to be super fast, and the technology we used was not able to always provide it so fast. But in the end, it worked out quite well. So in A/B test, we compared the cluster that was at the same time curated by the editors also with the algorithm and different variants of algorithms. And when it comes to clicks, it turned out it's competitive. So the algorithm is performing quite well. While at the same time, the algorithm does provide a much better content diversity on topic level. You can see here on the top, that's the distribution of topics within the content recommended by the editors. And on the lower graph, you can see it what the algorithm does, and you can see there's a lot of different topics recommended. And so nearly all the content items are recommended each day, and besides that means a coverage of 100%. So that's really promising results we got there. Yes, and to summarize, we think the presented PSM metrics provide a solid basis for an informed and open discussion with all stakeholders. We will have to publish and explain these metrics continuously and support that discussion with some tools I've shown you, maybe some other ones. And there are, of course, a lot more use cases possible, and each one needs an appropriate adaptation of these basic metrics with respect to context and similarity measure and the overall goals. And we also believe that reinforcement learning and bandits can really help us to more directly steer the algorithms and the outcome towards those PSM metrics. And to answer that question I posed at the beginning of the talk, no, we have not reached our goal yet, of course. There's still much more for improvement in optimizing our algorithms towards the PSMR. But now we have a solid baseline, and so we can measure our progress towards our overall goal. And that is really a big step within ZDF and for the communication and building trust with all our users. Thank you.
Thank you, Andreas. We have a few questions. For instance, do you have an idea of how diverse is good enough, given that in past experiences, too diverse content will hurt user experience?
Yes, so that's a very good question, not so easy to answer. So we think that we have also to look at dashboards with metrics like viewing volume, for example. And of course, what I've shown you is just this perspective, PSMR metrics alone. So it's more like the combination of both, of course. So what we want is we want to have success, and we think we have high quality content, and all is high quality content. So we are looking at viewing volume, of course, but if there's an alternative, and an A/B test shows that, one alternative generates competitive or nearly competitive viewing volume with a better diversity, when we think we should go for this. And also we have to look, of course, to mid and long-term effects, like, yeah, exactly what the question was, is we don't know how much diversity is really the right size or right number.
Okay. Given the public function of your service, how important is explainability for your model selection?
So when we have the choice, we would always choose the more simpler model. to be honest. So, for example, this bandit we used here is a linear bandit, and it was really not too hard to explain how it worked out to the editors, for example. So that's really interesting for us. When it comes to explainability on these user interface, yes, there we will bring in some into production in the near future. We know that from user surveys that user wish some kind of explanation, and with the similarity measure based on content, I think we have a good basis. When you just go and rely on user interactions as a basis for your models and training, I think that's much harder to do. Yeah.
Okay. We have a question from the audience here.
Thank you. Very excellent talk. I was wondering if you could give a little more, or if you could just explain your definition of serendipity, please.
Okay, yes, yes, sure. So for us, the main idea of serendipity is we can provide a recommendation that leads that a specific user is using some other content he has not used before. Like, for example, a lot of people are just watching series, movies on ZDFmediathek, but also we'd like to bring our documentaries to that specific users. So that is the basic idea of that serendipity definition right now. So we are looking not what just the algorithm has presented to specific users, but we look at what the user has done after he has looked on some recommendations. So for the start page, for this personalized recommendation on the start page, would look like higher serendipity means a user is guided through the recommendations to some new category. And on a documentary page, for example, it would like he has used some other topics, not true crime only, but would also like some documentary with flowers in the Alps, for example.
Yeah, thank you. You used words like new in there, and so it's still. Is there a precise definition somewhere that we can look at?
So we release this public value dashboard, and within that, there you can look up this definition we are using currently. So yeah, it's a formula, it's a SQL statement, and this more like definition and in softer terms we use for the board's representation or so. Yeah, we'll find all these three, and I think these together give you the level of detail you need for every perspective. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we're out of time, so no more questions. Please interact on the RecSys Hub.